Welcome to Crash Book, your book in a capsule. The place where we present books in short and simple knowledge capsules, so you can benefit from them anytime, anywhere. Whether you're on public transport or during waiting times, here you can listen to summaries of the most important books and feed your mind with new ideas that help you develop your life. So, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell to receive all new content and enjoy every moment of this knowledge journey with us. Introduction: Radical Candor. In today's workplace, communication plays a vital role in determining success. Yet, despite the many tools available to help us communicate better, people often struggle to connect in meaningful ways. Kim Scott, in her book Radical Candor, offers a solution to this problem by introducing a concept that blends care with challenge. Radical candor isn't just about being honest or direct. It's about creating an environment where feedback is delivered in a way that is both kind and clear. The central premise of radical candor is simple. For a team to thrive, leaders must be able to both challenge directly and care personally. Too often, feedback is delivered in a manner that lacks either empathy or clarity, leaving team members confused or disengaged. On the other hand, when feedback is both direct and delivered with genuine care, it leads to stronger relationships, personal growth, and better team outcomes. Scott emphasizes that radical candor is not about being harsh or overly critical. Instead, it's about being honest with people in a way that shows you care about their development. The key is to strike the right balance between caring personally for your team members and challenging them to improve in ways that benefit the team as a whole. When this balance is achieved, it builds trust, strengthens bonds, and ultimately drives better results. This concept, while straightforward, is often overlooked in workplaces, where fear of confrontation or a desire to avoid discomfort leads to communication breakdowns. Radical candor offers a roadmap to a healthier, more effective approach to leadership and teamwork. Chapter 1. What is radical candor? In the first chapter, Kim Scott dives deeper into what radical candor really means and how it can transform a team. The term itself is made up of two crucial components: caring personally and challenging directly. Scott argues that leaders must be able to show they care about their team members on a personal level. This doesn't mean becoming best friends with everyone, but rather demonstrating genuine interest in their well-being, both inside and outside of work. By establishing this trust, leaders create a foundation where feedback can be received openly and constructively. However, caring personally is only half of the equation. The second component, challenging directly, is equally important. This involves offering candid, sometimes difficult, feedback that pushes individuals to grow and improve. Scott stresses that many leaders fall into one of two traps. They either fail to challenge directly because they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, or they focus only on challenging directly, which can come across as harsh or impersonal. Radical candor, on the other hand, allows leaders to challenge their team members while still showing them respect and care. By practicing radical candor, leaders create a culture of openness and accountability, where feedback is seen as a tool for growth rather than a personal attack. Scott shares examples of how this approach can lead to better results, both for individuals and teams. She also explains the potential pitfalls of not adopting radical candor, such as resentment, disengagement, and missed opportunities for development. Chapter 2. Get, Give, and Encourage Guidance. In the second chapter, Scott emphasizes the importance of guidance in the workplace. Guidance, in this context, refers to both giving and receiving feedback. Scott introduces a framework for providing effective guidance, which includes being clear, specific, and timely. The goal is not just to offer feedback, but to ensure that it is actionable, relevant, and constructive. Scott acknowledges that giving feedback can be uncomfortable, especially when it involves delivering criticism. However, she stresses that it is crucial to create an environment where feedback is both expected and appreciated. Leaders should foster an atmosphere where team members feel comfortable offering feedback to one another, as well as to their superiors. This practice can significantly improve the performance of both individuals and teams, as it encourages a continuous loop of improvement. One key aspect of giving guidance is ensuring that it is specific and focused on behaviors, rather than personal traits. When feedback is vague or generalized, it is less likely to lead to positive change. Scott encourages leaders to provide concrete examples of what someone is doing well or what needs improvement, along with suggestions for how to improve. This helps the recipient understand exactly what they need to do and why it matters. In addition to giving feedback, Scott stresses the importance of encouraging guidance from others. A leader's role is not just to provide direction, but to invite feedback from all directions. This means being open to receiving guidance from team members, peers, and even subordinates. By doing so, leaders not only improve their own performance but also model the behavior they want to see in their team. Scott concludes this chapter by outlining the benefits of a feedback-rich culture. When feedback is a regular part of daily interactions, it becomes less intimidating and more productive. Teams that embrace guidance as a central part of their work culture experience higher levels of trust, collaboration, and innovation. Chapter 3. Understand what motivates each person. Every person has unique motivations that drive their performance and behavior at work. As a leader, it's essential to listen actively and understand what makes each individual tick. Scott emphasizes the importance of knowing your team members personally, what their career aspirations are, what they care about, and what their personal goals might be. Understanding these motivations helps you tailor feedback and guidance that resonates with each individual, making it more effective and impactful. Different people are motivated by different things, some by recognition, others by autonomy, and others by personal development. Leaders must avoid assuming that everyone is motivated in the same way or responds to feedback in the same manner. Listening to employees and paying attention to the cues they give, such as their reactions to feedback or how they engage in conversations, provides valuable insights into what drives them. Adapting your feedback and leadership style to fit the motivations of your team members fosters better relationships and results. Scott shares examples of leaders who've successfully personalized their approach to employees based on their unique motivators, resulting in higher levels of engagement and performance. Chapter 4. Get stuff done with Radical Candor. Radical Candor isn't just about feedback. It's about driving results and achieving goals as a team. For Radical Candor to work effectively, it must be integrated into daily team operations. Leaders should regularly communicate the bigger picture and how individual contributions align with the team's overall objectives. Radical Candor requires leaders to be transparent, giving honest feedback and setting clear expectations for the team. It's crucial to acknowledge both successes and areas for improvement, ensuring that feedback is balanced and motivating. Scott stresses the importance of giving team members the autonomy to carry out tasks without micromanaging, which boosts their confidence and motivation. Leaders should empower their teams by trusting them to execute tasks while still being available for guidance and feedback when needed. Direct, transparent conversations are essential for driving team performance. Leaders shouldn't avoid difficult conversations, even if they are uncomfortable. A culture of candid, ongoing feedback leads to continuous improvement and innovation within the team. Positive feedback, when paired with constructive criticism, encourages employees to maintain high levels of engagement and push for excellence. Chapter 5. Build a cohesive team with Radical Candor. Building a strong, cohesive team is a vital component of any successful organization. Scott explains that Radical Candor helps create trust within teams, which is the foundation for collaboration and effective teamwork. Leaders should foster an environment where team members feel comfortable sharing feedback with one another, not just from the leader to the team. Trust, vulnerability, and open communication are crucial for team cohesion and success. Leaders must encourage vulnerability, which can sometimes feel risky, but is necessary for deepening relationships and creating a supportive environment. Radical Candor allows team members to voice concerns without fear of retribution, leading to more honest and effective collaboration. A cohesive team thrives on mutual respect, shared goals, and the ability to give and receive feedback freely. Scott highlights how building trust and cohesion among team members can improve problem-solving, creativity, and overall team performance. Teams that embrace Radical Candor build stronger relationships, which leads to better cooperation, higher morale, and greater overall success. Chapter 6. Create a culture of feedback. Feedback should be a regular, ongoing part of team interactions, not just limited to performance reviews or scheduled meetings. Scott emphasizes the importance of making feedback a core part of the team's culture so everyone is comfortable both giving and receiving it. Leaders play a critical role in setting the tone for this culture by modeling openness to feedback and encouraging candid conversations. A culture of feedback fosters an environment where people can make mistakes, learn from them, and continuously improve. Scott discusses the difference between praise and criticism, noting that both are necessary for growth but must be balanced. It's important to give feedback in a way that is specific, actionable, and timely. The sooner feedback is given, the more relevant and impactful it will be. Encouraging peer-to-peer feedback helps strengthen relationships and build a stronger team dynamic. A key element of feedback culture is the ability to offer constructive criticism without damaging relationships or creating resentment. Scott shares examples of teams that have embraced a culture of feedback, explaining how it led to increased accountability and better results. The chapter also highlights the importance of receiving feedback from all levels of the organization, not just from leaders to team members. Chapter 7. Lead with Radical Candor. Leading with radical candor is about embodying both care and challenge in all interactions, not just when giving feedback. Scott explains that leaders must be emotionally intelligent, knowing when to push hard and when to show empathy. A key point is that leading with radical candor requires self-awareness and humility. Leaders need to be willing to accept feedback from their teams and adjust accordingly. Leaders should prioritize personal relationships with their team members to foster trust, which makes candid conversations easier and more productive. Radical candor involves not just challenging your team to improve, but also giving them the space and support to develop on their own. Scott advises leaders to avoid being overly critical or overly lenient, as both extremes can hinder a team's growth. Striking the right balance between care and challenge is crucial. Leading with radical candor also means recognizing when a team member is struggling and offering support, whether that's through mentoring, coaching, or just listening. The chapter stresses that leaders must create an environment where people feel safe to be vulnerable, share concerns, and ask for help without fear of judgment. Scott provides case studies of successful leaders who have embraced radical candor, demonstrating how it leads to more effective teams and stronger company culture. Chapter 8. The Radical Candor Feedback Model. The Radical Candor Feedback Model is a powerful tool for delivering both praise and criticism in a constructive manner. Scott introduces a simple but effective framework for delivering feedback that combines caring personally with challenging directly. The model suggests that feedback should be given in a way that is direct and clear, while also showing empathy for the individual receiving it. Feedback should not be vague or overly general, but should include specific examples of behavior that can be changed or improved. The key to delivering effective feedback is being clear about the problem and offering practical solutions for how to address it. Scott advises leaders to frame feedback in a way that encourages growth and improvement, rather than making the recipient feel defensive or discouraged. Radical candor, according to Scott, is about creating a safe space for people to receive and give feedback without judgment. This allows for open dialogue and continuous development. Leaders should also encourage their teams to provide feedback on how feedback is being delivered to ensure it's constructive and well-received. The radical candor model can be applied not only in leadership roles but also among peers to foster a more open and supportive team environment. Scott wraps up this chapter by sharing tips on how to practice radical candor daily, ensuring that feedback becomes a natural part of the work culture. Chapter 9. Avoiding the ruin of obnoxious aggression. In this chapter, Kim Scott explores the dangers of being overly aggressive in delivering feedback, even if it's intended to be helpful. Obnoxious aggression is a term Scott uses to describe feedback that is harsh, direct, and untempered by empathy or care. While direct feedback is necessary, it should never come across as rude, disrespectful, or hurtful. Leaders should avoid being aggressive in their approach, as it damages relationships and undermines trust. Scott emphasizes that feedback should always be constructive and aimed at helping the recipient improve, not simply criticizing them for the sake of it. The key difference between radical candor and obnoxious aggression is the intention behind the feedback. Radical candor comes from a place of care and a desire to help the individual grow, while obnoxious aggression is rooted in frustration or impatience. Leaders should always take a step back before delivering critical feedback, ensuring that it is done with respect and with the goal of fostering growth, not tearing someone down. Scott shares real-life examples where leaders unintentionally cross the line into obnoxious aggression, highlighting how this approach can lead to disengagement and resentment among team members. Chapter 10. Managing Relationships with Ruinous Empathy. On the flip side, Scott also warns against the opposite problem, ruinous empathy. Ruinous empathy occurs when leaders care too much about sparing someone's feelings, leading them to avoid giving constructive feedback altogether. While the intention behind ruinous empathy is good, wanting to protect the person's self-esteem, the result is damaging because it prevents growth and improvement. Scott explains that withholding important feedback out of fear of hurting someone's feelings is ultimately unhelpful and unfair to the person receiving it. They are denied the opportunity to learn from their mistakes and improve. Leaders must find a balance between being kind and being honest. Showing care is important, but failing to challenge someone directly is detrimental in the long run. Scott advises leaders to adopt a mindset where they view providing feedback as an act of care and respect, even when it's difficult. Examples are given where leaders avoided tough conversations, only to have issues fester and become bigger problems later on. By practicing radical candor, leaders can avoid both obnoxious aggression and ruinous empathy, creating an environment where feedback is always constructive, direct, and empathetic. Chapter 11. The Challenge of Radical Candor. Embracing radical candor comes with its own set of challenges. This chapter addresses the difficulties leaders face when trying to integrate this approach into their management style. One challenge is overcoming the fear of being perceived as harsh or mean. Many leaders struggle to offer direct feedback because they worry it will alienate or demotivate their team members. Scott suggests that the key to overcoming this fear is to develop a mindset that focuses on the long-term benefits of radical candor, both for the individual and the team. Another challenge is the discomfort that often arises when giving feedback. Even though radical candor promotes a culture of openness, the act of delivering feedback, especially negative feedback, can be uncomfortable. Scott provides guidance on how leaders can prepare themselves and their teams for these challenging conversations. She stresses that with practice and intentionality, delivering radical candor becomes more natural over time. Leaders must also work on creating a feedback-friendly environment where team members feel safe giving and receiving feedback without fear of retaliation or judgment. Scott encourages leaders to be patient with themselves as they work through these challenges and continue to model radical candor in their actions. Chapter 12. Building a Career with Radical Candor. Radical candor isn't just about improving teams and relationships in the workplace. It can also play a crucial role in advancing your own career. Scott emphasizes that leaders who practice radical candor create a work environment where people grow, are empowered, and thrive, which leads to better outcomes for the team and the company overall. For personal career growth, radical candor helps individuals build trust, improve relationships, and foster stronger connections with colleagues and superiors. By embracing radical candor, leaders can develop their own leadership skills and strengthen their influence. When you balance care and challenge, people respect you for being honest, supportive, and reliable. Scott highlights the importance of giving and receiving feedback to advance one's career. Leaders who are open to feedback grow faster, and those who provide constructive feedback help their teams grow and succeed. Building a career with radical candor involves cultivating an environment where feedback is seen as a positive tool for development. It also means taking responsibility for your own growth, being receptive to criticism, and working on your weaknesses. Scott shares the story of how feedback helped her navigate her own career challenges, demonstrating the powerful role of radical candor in helping people overcome obstacles and progress in their professional lives. One important point is that radical candor can help leaders recognize their blind spots and avoid the pitfalls of becoming complacent or disconnected from their teams. Leaders who practice radical candor also create stronger, more cohesive teams that are driven to succeed, contributing to both the individual's and the organization's long-term success. Chapter 13. making radical candor work in your organization. Scott explains how radical candor can be applied on a larger organizational scale beyond individual teams or leaders. It's important for the culture of radical candor to be integrated throughout the entire organization for maximum impact. The first step in this process is leadership buy-in. Leaders must understand and believe in the principles of radical candor for it to take root throughout the organization. Scott outlines how organizations can promote radical candor through training, mentorship programs, and creating safe spaces for feedback. Encouraging open communication at all levels is essential for establishing this culture. The chapter highlights the importance of aligning organizational values with the principles of radical candor. This alignment makes it easier for teams to adopt and sustain the practice. One approach Scott suggests is creating a feedback loop that enables continuous improvement. Feedback should be woven into every aspect of the work process, from performance evaluations to project debriefs. Leaders must also lead by example. If leaders consistently demonstrate radical candor, it will encourage employees to do the same. This creates a trickle-down effect that fosters an open, communicative, and transparent organizational culture. Scott also advises leaders to be patient as they introduce radical candor into the organization. Cultural change takes time, and there will be challenges along the way. However, the long-term benefits, stronger teams, higher morale, and greater success, are well worth the effort. Chapter 14. Avoiding the pitfalls of radical candor. Even though radical candor is a powerful approach, it's not without its challenges. This chapter addresses some of the common pitfalls leaders might encounter as they try to practice radical candor. One major pitfall is being overly blunt or harsh. While radical candor encourages directness, leaders must remember to balance that with empathy. Too much directness without caring can quickly turn into obnoxious aggression. Another challenge is letting personal relationships interfere with giving honest feedback. Leaders who become too close to their team members may find it difficult to challenge them directly when necessary, which can hinder growth and accountability. Scott cautions against the temptation to avoid difficult conversations in the name of saving face or keeping the peace. Leaders who avoid giving tough feedback out of fear of discomfort are practicing ruinous empathy, which ultimately holds people back. The chapter also emphasizes the importance of being aware of the organizational culture. In some companies, openness and candor may not be the norm, and it may take time to shift this mindset. Scott highlights the importance of maintaining consistency in applying radical candor. Leaders must strive to keep the balance of care and challenge, even during stressful times or when facing resistance. The key takeaway from this chapter is that practicing radical candor requires self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and a commitment to continual improvement. Leaders must remain patient and persistent as they work to develop and maintain a culture of feedback and transparency. Chapter 15. The State of Radical Candor Today. Evolution of Radical Candor. Scott reflects on how radical candor has been received in different organizations and how it's been implemented by leaders across various industries. Common challenges. Despite the popularity of radical candor, Scott acknowledges that many leaders struggle with finding the right balance between caring personally and challenging directly. Overcoming resistance. In some organizations, there's resistance to implementing radical candor due to corporate cultures that prioritize hierarchy, status, or fear of conflict. Scott discusses how leaders can overcome this resistance by gradually introducing candid conversations and fostering trust.